Working for somebody else is dumb. Why are you out here working for somebody else and helping them chase their dream and not chasing your own dream? Why are you calling somebody else your boss? This is all bullshit that we hear on social media and in the news and so forth. It's just nonsense because the reality is this. Most people do not have the freaking skills to be an entrepreneur. Most people need to get skills, excel at a job, and they can become successful that way. We do not need 300 million entrepreneurs in the United States because somebody has to work the freaking jobs. We can't all be the boss. So as I mentioned, my wife and I have ran side businesses as well as, working jobs. My wife ran her therapy practice, a mental health therapist, and she still runs that practice, as a matter of fact, just not as big as she was running it at one point, but nevertheless, she still runs that practice. And I, own rental properties and flip houses as my side business. And as a matter of fact, I actually took 2 years off from work to just basically, I needed to decompress. And during that 2 years of taking off, I flipped houses to make a living. So I have some insight as to the life of, I guess, being an entrepreneur, so forth, by my own experience, as well as, talking to my wife and, helping her with her business. And when I say entrepreneur, I'm not always talking about like you got to be, Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or Larry Ellison or something like that. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the ability or the will to go out and start something on your own, make it work, generate a profit from it. And it's something that you did and you're the boss, you run it, you make sure everything functions properly. And like I said, it's a unique skill that you have to have. And before you go out and quit your job, I would like to tell you about some things that you need to be conscious of. So this is me passing on a little bit of my experience to you in case you are looking to go off and start your entrepreneurial journey. Now, these things are in no particular order of importance. They are just things that come to mind, right? And the first thing on this list is you cannot be a little bitch. I'm just going to say it just like that, right? Because it is going to take you making some choices and decisions that they quite honestly make you feel uncomfortable because they're just things that you're not used to. So for me, that was spending money, right, on marketing. And I went from a person who was afraid to spend $500 a month, right, and not seeing a result. So spending $500 a month on marketing and you're doing that for 4 or 5 months and you see no results, right? To eventually progressing to be a person who, was willing to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month on marketing because I've learned that, there's a direct correlation between, spending money on marketing and the potential opportunities to make income. So if I spend, $4,000 each month, $5,000 each month, and I do that for 4 months without seeing any results. And then the fifth month, I get a deal and I go on to, rehab and sell that deal. And let's say I make $40,000, $50,000. So I spent $20,000 on the marketing, for example, but I made $40,000, $50,000. So I'm still ahead. And once I learned that, that fear kind of melted away. But in the beginning, you are going to have to develop some grit because you are going to be afraid when you see money going out of the door and nothing coming in. So next on the list is entrepreneurship is lonely because most people who start off on their entrepreneurial journey are what I call lone wolves, meaning that you are the one-man show doing it all yourself. You're the project manager, you're the finance manager, you're the accountant, the bookkeeper, you're the person who is doing the sales, you're meeting with clients and so forth. You are doing everything yourself. And on top of having all this responsibility, 9 times out of 10, you're still working a full-time job during the day. So all of this work that you're doing, it comes after work. And a lot of people don't even understand what you're doing. You can't hang out with your friends as much. So, they're wondering like, man, what's up with D? Like, I ain't seen him in a while. It's because he's off working on his business. And then all of a sudden, your wife and kids are looking at you like, damn, he sure spends a lot of time on his computer. That's because you're trying to get all this work done in the evening when you just worked all day. So nobody really understands what you're doing. And, you just got your head down working. So it can kind of be a lonely experience to a certain degree. So that's something that you should be prepared for. Do not expect your family to help, especially if your spouse, for example, is busy working a full-time job and running her own business, as well as taking care of kids and so forth. If you ask her to help you with your business, you're just going to get cussed out. So I'm trying to save you from getting cussed out. Do not expect any help from your family. And if you have, like young, teenage kids, man, they're going to be into their sports. They're going to be into games. They're going to be into friends and all this other stuff. And they're not thinking about you, not interested in what you're doing in the least bit. And then if you have like a young kid, who's 5, 6, 7, every day when he gets out of school and all this stuff, he wants you to go outside and throw the football. He wants you to go outside and shoot basketball, play soccer, all this different stuff. He does not care that you have a dream of running a business. He does not want to help you run that business. He wants you to play with him. And that's what you're going to have to do. So do not expect any help whatsoever from your family. So I know it sounds sexy to say that you're an entrepreneur, but here's the reality. Most entrepreneurs who start out, they just have a job. They have a day job that they work, and then they have another night job when they get off their day job. Because again, as I mentioned, you're going to be doing all the different tasks yourself. There's nobody else to go and do that work for you. So you are it. And it becomes a job. For example, on my day job, I managed a team of 10, 11 contracts professionals. And I had to oversee these people during the day. I had to answer their questions, help them with difficult issues, and, send out guidance that came down from above, make sure that everybody was being compliant with whatever they were supposed to be doing and so forth. So you're doing the same thing when you are a lone wolf entrepreneur, for example. I mean, I am the manager of a project. So I'm going to go acquire the property. I'm going to arrange the financing for that property. And then I'm going to go and get with the general contractor. And then I'm going to have to go out and make sure that he is doing what he's supposed to be doing. And he has all of the other, subcontractors and things like that doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it's all of a sudden, you're just the manager who's managing a bunch of people. Now, they may not be your employees, but they still function, the same. They're contractors. You still have to at least oversee them in terms of them doing their job. So it's just like having another job. And if you're not careful, a lot of people end up in that permanently because they cannot take themselves out of the job that they're doing. Now, me, that wasn't my issue necessarily. I could run it by myself. But again, I did have a lot of people that were helping me on my team that I had built. And that's why I say that a lot of people who call themselves entrepreneurs, what they really have is just another job. And I was actually one of those people. So I'm telling you from experience. Now, another thing that I have experienced in my entrepreneurial journey is developing bad habits. Yes, I developed some bad habits. And this happened during the 2 years that I took off from my day job, right? And I was just flipping houses essentially during that time. And the first year, it was cool. I guess maybe because there was, still a certain level of excitement. You got all this freedom, and I was, excited about it. But the second year, it really changed. I got a little tired of the repetition of, man, you got to acquire a house and go through this whole rehab process, sell it, and you got to do it again. And then you do that, you got to do it again. So by the second year, it kind of wore off a little bit, right? The excitement. And now, again, it was just a job. And the thing that I started doing was, not being as motivated to get up, right? So I would sleep later. And, I'd probably get up and start moving around 11 a.m. to noon, right? And then something I never ever in my life, done is I would get sleepy during like the day and like have to take a nap. And then at night, I would be up all night, like maybe to 2 in the morning, man, watching like old westerns and stuff like that. I mean, I literally had just developed a lot of bad habits from having all of this free time and, basically making my own schedule. So, picked up a lot of bad habits. And I think that that's something that probably happens to a lot of entrepreneurs who find themselves, not having this rigid schedule or this strict schedule and regimen that they're on, and you're making your own schedule and you just get laxed and you just start doing things that you normally wouldn't do. And the last thing I want to talk about is you might not love the business, you may not love the work. And that's something that I somewhat discovered, is that you know I much rather own rental properties and turn them over to a property manager and just manage the property manager than I would like, flipping houses for a lifetime. Just going through that, first year, I think I may have flipped like, maybe 9 or 10 houses. And just the repetition of it all and just doing it over and over. Like I said, the fun, the excitement kind of left it. And a big difference was this, is that when I was working my day job, I was flipping about 4 houses a year. And because I made, a good income on my day job that took care of all the bills and everything, that money that I had made from flipping the houses, it was just, you know, extra money. It was cushion. So there was not this same level of, stress or urgency or anything that came with it, because you were not, making that income to live on. And it's very different when you are making that, income, and that's what you have to live off of. It's not as fun anymore, because now it's like, man, I sold that one, working on this next 2 projects, and man, got to get those sold. And you know that the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to have to do it again and again and again. And like I mentioned, it turned into, I figured that I didn't really love the work. I like it, but I definitely do not love it. And if I could go back in time and look back on, those 2 years of flipping properties, that, man, I would much rather have just, kept, 5 of those properties each year, and, had them as rentals and turned them over to property management, and, went about my way. But in hindsight, you look at it and, you deal with it. But it was a great learning opportunity. And that's why I want to pass this message on to you all, is that, when you go on this entrepreneurial journey, you may not necessarily, love what you're doing in the end, and you may have to pivot, and that's cool. I think that's the beautiful thing about life, is that you can make these choices and, go do what you want to do, and nobody can tell you any different. But I think that's kind of the beauty of somebody who is willing to go out and be an entrepreneur, is that, they're willing to recognize and do certain things and take certain chances, and they're okay if that doesn't work out, because they always got a contingency plan. So if you're one of those people who have that entrepreneurial itch, I would say, first of all, arm yourself with education. Stack you some chips so that you're not pressed for money and so forth. And just recognize and understand that it's going to be a difficult experience. I'm sure that there are people who go out and become entrepreneurs and become successful, and it was just a piece of cake. They snapped their fingers and everything fell in line. But that generally is not the case. It's a lot of work. I think it's a different layer of stress. It's a good stress, because I think there's a certain level of energy and excitement that comes with, doing something and generating an income from almost like scratch. Like you found an opportunity, you massaged the opportunity, and then you turned it into something. That there's something about that I guess kind of stimulates you a little bit. And that's exactly, was my ordeal. And definitely do not buy into all the hype that, you're going to be this millionaire success right off the bat, and you're going to have all these employees working for you, and you're just going to be the boss, you're going to be the man, and you're going to be telling everybody what to do, and everybody's going to be just out here chasing your dream for you. No, that's just the stuff that they spew on social media, because they're probably trying to sell you something. And like I said earlier in the video, most people have no freaking business being an entrepreneur. They just don't. They are not equipped, and they just need to work their job and gain skills and continue to grow and be successful in their job, because that's what I've done as well. That's what my wife has done as well. We just happen to also be individuals who, I guess, had kind of an entrepreneurial itch, and we went off and pursued things that we wanted to pursue. But that doesn't mean that you can't also work for somebody else while you're working on your business, or you just may not want to do your business full time and you like doing, your job that you work during the day. For example, my wife loves being a professor and teaching. So she does not want to just do therapy full time all day. So sometimes you have those situations. So that is all I have for you in this video. If you took something of value, please like and share with your friends and family. Also, subscribe to my channel, where I'll be dropping a new video each week about money and life lessons and things of that nature. So in the meantime, take care of yourself, be safe out here in these social media streets.